Admiral Sarah Martinez stood at the observation deck of Luna Base, her eyes fixed on the sleek vessel hovering in Earth's orbit. The Archimedes wasn't impressive by conventional standards, a mere 300 meters long. Its hull a patchwork of experimental materials that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. But appearances, as humanity had learned long ago, could be deceiving. Final diagnostic check complete. Admiral, Lieutenant Chen's voice came through the comm. All systems are nominal. Martinez nodded, though her eyes never left the ship. 30 years of research, countless resources, and humanity's finest minds had poured their efforts into this single vessel. While other species built armadas, humanity had chosen a different path. The alert came exactly as their projections had predicted. Multiple quantum wake signatures detected at the heliopause, announced the sensor officer. Initial count suggests over 5,000 vessels. The Drachnid Empire's invasion fleet had arrived, right on schedule. They were notorious for their overwhelming force doctrine. Why send 100 ships when you could send 1,000? Their empire spanned 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, built on the broken remnants of dozens of species who had faced similar armadas. Message from Fleet Commander Voxthul, the communications officer reported. They're laughing, sir, demanding to know if the Archimedes is truly our only defense. Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Send them our response. It's all we need. The bridge of the Archimedes hummed with quiet activity as Captain James Rodriguez and his hand-picked crew of 15 made their final preparations. Every person aboard represented the peak of human achievement in their field. Physicists, engineers, and pilots who had trained together for this moment for years. They're launching fighter screens, Rodriguez observed, watching the tactical display as thousands of smaller craft emerged from the Drachnid capital ships. Standard overwhelming force pattern. Dr. Emily Wong, the ship's chief scientist, looked up from her station. Perfect. The more mass they commit, the better this works. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, making minute adjustments to equations that had taken decades to perfect. The Drachnid fleet approached with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. Their formation was beautiful in its complexity. Layers of overlapping fighter screens protecting destroyers, which in turn sheltered their massive dreadnoughts. Energy readings suggested they had enough firepower to glass a dozen Earths. They're within optimal range, Wong announced. All gravitational sensors are tracking. Rodriguez nodded. Begin primary sequence. The Archimedes' true nature began to reveal itself. Panels along its hull shifted, revealing layers of exotic materials arranged in precise geometric patterns. To the Drachnid sensors, it must have looked like the ship was coming apart. Message from Voxthul, the comm officer reported. Your surrender would be more dignified than whatever malfunction we're witnessing. Rodriguez shared a knowing look with Wong. Initiate the Einstein protocol. The ship's quantum core came alive, generating fields that human physicists had theorized about for centuries, but had never been able to produce until now. The Archimedes wasn't a warship in any traditional sense. It was humanity's attempt to reach into the fundamental fabric of space-time itself. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Drachnid fighter screens. Their precise formations began to waver as localized gravitational distortions tugged at their ships. The Archimedes was creating a complex web of gravitational waves, using the enemy fleet's own mass to amplify and redirect the forces involved. They're trying to compensate, Wong reported, excitement creeping into her voice. But they can't plot the distortions fast enough. The wave patterns are too complex. The Drachnid fleet's elegant formation began to collapse. Fighter craft collided as space itself seemed to twist around them. Larger ships fired their engines at full power, trying to break free of gravitational forces that seemed to pull in impossible directions. Direct message from Voxthul, the comm officer announced. What manner of weapon is this? Rodriguez keyed the comm. Not a weapon, Commander. Just a deeper understanding of the universe. You came expecting us to fight force with force. But humanity, we decided to think bigger. The Archimedes' field continued to expand, its influence growing as it used the mass of each affected ship to strengthen its effect. The Drachnid fleet, for all its overwhelming numbers, had become the architect of its own trap. Their ships were now caught in a complex gravitational dance, unable to maintain formation or bring their weapons to bear effectively. "They're trying to jump to hyperspace," Wong observed. "But the spatial distortions are preventing their drives from calculating safe vectors." Martinez watched from Luna Base as humanity's greatest gamble played out. The Drachnid fleet, which had broken countless civilizations, was being undone not by superior firepower, but by humanity's understanding of physics itself. It was a victory not of force, but of intellect. "Voxthul is hailing again," the comm officer reported. They're requesting terms." Martinez straightened her uniform. "Inform the commander that we'll be happy to discuss terms once his fleet assumes a stable orbit around Saturn. We'll even help them calculate the gravitational assists they'll need to get there safely." She paused, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. "After all, we've gotten quite good at understanding gravity." As the Drachnid fleet struggled to adapt to their new reality, the Archimedes maintained its vigilant position, a testament to humanity's different approach to survival among the stars. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful response to overwhelming force wasn't to match it, but to understand and redirect it. The battle for Earth would be remembered not for its destruction, but for the day humanity showed the galaxy that intelligence and innovation could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. And as news of the encounter spread across the galaxy, other species would begin to look at the seemingly primitive humans in a very different light. Fleet Commander Voxthul's facial spines quivered with barely contained rage as he watched his mighty armada drift helplessly in the complex gravitational fields. Through the quantum glass viewport of his command dreadnought, he could see 3 of his destroyer escorts slowly rotating end over end, their engines firing uselessly against forces that seemed to defy conventional physics. "Explain to me," he growled at his chief science officer, "how one human vessel is doing this." Science Director Krellings adjusted her sensory membranes, the crystalline structures on her head glowing with frustration. "Commander, the humans, they've taken an entirely different evolutionary path in space warfare. While we focused on expanding our understanding of quantum weaponry and shield technology, they appear to have devoted their resources to manipulating fundamental forces." The Archimedes hung in space before them, its dark hull now emanating patterns of light that seemed to follow the gravitational waves it was generating. It was an elegant dance of physics that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. "Our latest scans are troubling," Krellings continued. "They're not just creating gravitational fields, they're using our own ship's mass to amplify and sustain them. The more we struggle, the stronger their control becomes." A junior officer approached with a data crystal. "Commander, we've completed our analysis of human technological development over the past 30 years. It appears they detected our approach long before we reached their system. But instead of building a defensive fleet, they built this," Voxthul finished, mandibles clicking in frustration. "One ship, all their resources into one vessel." "Not exactly, sir," the officer corrected. "They built thousands of prototypes, each testing different aspects of gravitational manipulation. The Archimedes is the culmination of those experiments. They approached space warfare like a scientific problem rather than a military one." On the bridge of the Archimedes, Dr. Emily Wong was monitoring the Drachnid fleet's attempts to break free. "They're trying to synchronize their engine bursts," she reported to Captain Rodriguez. "Creative, but it won't work. The gravitational fields are adaptive." Rodriguez nodded, watching the tactical display. The Drachnid ship's movements were becoming more coordinated, but each attempt to break free only provided more energy for the Archimedes' systems to harness. "They're learning, though, faster than we expected." "That's the interesting part," Wong replied, excitement creeping into her voice despite the tension. "Their scientific understanding is extraordinary. In any other circumstance, they'd probably have figured this out already, but they're so locked into traditional combat paradigms that they're missing the obvious solution. Admiral Martinez's voice came through the comm. They're requesting a direct channel to discuss our technology. Opinion. Rodriguez glanced at Wong, who nodded enthusiastically. Let's show them. After all, the best way to prevent future conflicts is to help them understand. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Voxthal's imposing figure. His species' natural armor glinted in the light of his bridge, but his posture showed a newfound respect that hadn't been there before. Your achievement is impressive, Voxthal admitted, though I fail to understand why you would reveal such technology rather than using it to destroy us outright. Wong stepped forward. Because destruction was never our goal, Commander. The Archimedes was designed as a proof of concept, a demonstration that there are better ways to resolve conflicts than through overwhelming force. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them, showing the complex mathematical models underlying the ship's gravitational control systems. Your fleet's primary weakness isn't its weapons or defenses. It's your assumption that the only way to win a space battle is through superior firepower. Kralynx moved into view, her sensory membranes pulsing with scientific curiosity. These equations, they're beautiful. You've mapped quantum-scale gravitational interactions in ways we never considered. But surely developing this technology for a single ship consumed enormous resources. Less than building and maintaining a fleet of thousands, Rodriguez pointed out. We took a gamble that understanding fundamental forces would be more valuable than manufacturing overwhelming numbers of conventional ships. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert from Wong's station. Energy spike in the Drachnid fleet. They're powering down their weapons systems. Voxthal's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You've made your point, humans. Perhaps it's time we had a real discussion about the nature of innovation and warfare. Your approach, it challenges everything we thought we knew about technological advancement. Admiral Martinez joined the conversation from Luna Base. We'd be happy to share our research, Commander. Under the right conditions, of course. The Archimedes wasn't built to maintain military superiority. It was built to change how species interact in space. The tension on both bridges began to ease as the conversation shifted from confrontation to collaboration. The Drachnid scientists, freed from the immediate pressure of combat, began asking increasingly sophisticated questions about the principles behind the Archimedes' operation. Your species, Kralynx observed, approached this challenge like scientists rather than warriors. While we perfected existing weapons technology, you questioned the fundamental assumptions about space combat itself. Wong nodded. We knew we couldn't match your production capacity or your military experience, so we asked different questions. Instead of how do we build a bigger fleet, we asked, what are we really trying to achieve here? The holographic displays between the ships now showed a complex dance of gravitational fields and counterfields, as the humans demonstrated how their understanding could be used not just for combat, but for stable orbital construction, more efficient space travel, and even stellar engineering. The truly remarkable thing, Rodriguez added, is that this is just the beginning. The Archimedes proves that there are entirely new ways to approach space technology, ways that don't require us to endlessly escalate our capacity for destruction. As the day progressed, what had begun as an invasion transformed into something unprecedented, a technical and scientific exchange between two species who had approached the same challenges from radically different perspectives. The Drachnid fleet, still held in the Archimedes' gravitational embrace, had become an impromptu conference center for some of the finest minds from both civilizations. In the end, it wasn't human firepower that turned back the Drachnid invasion. It was human innovation and willingness to share knowledge that transformed potential conquerors into reluctant admirers. The galaxy would never be quite the same, and the legend of humanity's single ship would spread far beyond Earth's solar system, though perhaps not for the reasons anyone had expected. Voxthal, watching his scientists eagerly collaborate with the humans, realized that perhaps his empire had become too focused on conquest at the expense of true advancement. Sometimes, it took a less advanced species to show you just how much you had yet to learn. The next 48 hours aboard the Archimedes transformed the ship from a defensive platform into an unprecedented center of interspecies collaboration. Dr. Emily Wong found herself surrounded by both human and drachnid scientists, all crowded around the ship's main quantum physics lab. The breakthrough, she explained, manipulating a holographic model of spacetime, came when we stopped thinking of gravity as an obstacle to overcome and started seeing it as a tool to be shaped. Science Director Krelinx's crystalline sensors pulsed with understanding. You turned our greatest advantage, our fleet's massive bulk, into a fundamental weakness. But more than that, you proved that our entire approach to space warfare was fundamentally flawed. Captain Rodriguez watched from the doorway as humans and drachnids worked side by side, their earlier hostility forgotten in the pursuit of knowledge. But he noticed Commander Voxthal standing apart, his armored form rigid with barely contained conflict. "Something troubles you, Commander." Rodriguez approached the drachnid leader. Voxthal's facial spines twitched. "Your species has done more than defeat us, Captain. You've challenged the very foundations of our empire. For millennia, we've expanded through superior force, believing that technological advancement meant building bigger ships, stronger weapons. And now you're wondering what else you might have missed," Rodriguez suggested. "Precisely. If we were so wrong about the applications of fundamental forces, what other obvious solutions have we overlooked in our rush to dominate rather than understand?" Their conversation was interrupted by an excited commotion from the lab. Dr. Wong and Krelinx had linked their computational systems, creating a new model of space-time manipulation that neither species had conceived of independently. "Look at this," Wong called out, her eyes bright with discovery. "By combining our understanding of quantum fields with drachnid energy distribution systems, we could create stable wormholes, controlled corridors through space-time itself." The implications were staggering. Such technology would transform space travel, making the vast distances between stars traversable without the need for massive fleets or extended journeys. "This is why we chose to share our knowledge," Rodriguez explained to Voxthal. "The Archimedes was never meant to be just a defensive weapon. It's a proof of concept, evidence that cooperation and understanding can achieve more than conflict ever could." Admiral Martinez's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the drachnid fleet. Can you confirm?" Rodriguez turned to Voxthal, whose mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. Yes. My engineers have been experimenting. With your permission, we'd like to demonstrate something." On the main viewer, the massive drachnid ships began to move in perfect synchronization. Rather than fighting against the Archimedes' gravitational fields, they were working with them, creating a harmonic resonance that amplified the effect. "Remarkable," Wong breathed, studying the readings. "They've adapted their quantum shield technology to interact with our gravitational fields. The potential applications are far beyond mere military use," Krelinx finished. "We've already begun theoretical work on using these principles for planetary defense against asteroids, stellar engineering, even terraforming." The news spread quickly through both fleets. Drachnid warriors, trained for generations in the art of conquest, found themselves eagerly discussing physics theorems with human scientists. The massive dreadnoughts, designed for destruction, were being repurposed as test beds for new gravitational experiments. But not everyone was entirely comfortable with this rapid change. A junior drachnid officer approached Voxthal, his movements hesitant. "Commander, we've received a priority transmission from the Imperial Council. They're concerned about the current situation." Voxthal's expression hardened. "Of course they are. Our entire society is built on the principle of technological supremacy through force. The humans haven't just defeated us. They've proven that our fundamental assumptions about progress were wrong." Rodriguez recognized the political implications. "Your superiors fear that this knowledge will destabilize your empire." "They're right to be concerned," Voxthal admitted. Already, word of what happened here is spreading through our fleet. Warriors are questioning centuries of doctrine. Scientists are proposing new research directions that have nothing to do with military applications. Dr. Wong looked up from her calculations. Change doesn't have to be destructive, Commander. Look at what we've achieved in just 2 days of cooperation. Imagine what our species could accomplish together over years or decades. The main lab's displays now showed a cascade of new discoveries, as human intuition and creativity combined with drachnid precision and experience. Theories that each species had struggled with for generations were being solved through collaboration. Perhaps, Voxful mused, watching his people work alongside the humans, this is the real test of a civilization's advancement. Not its ability to conquer, but its willingness to learn and adapt. Admiral Martinez's voice came through again, this time with an edge of excitement. Captain, we're picking up transmissions from multiple sectors. It seems news of our encounter has spread faster than we anticipated. We're receiving requests for scientific exchanges from 17 different species. Rodriguez shared a look with Wong. It seems the Archimedes has started something far bigger than we planned. The universe, Wong replied, grinning, has a way of surprising us. We thought we were building a defense system, but what we really created was a bridge between species. As the day continued, more discoveries emerged. The combined human-drachnid research teams began developing applications that neither species had imagined alone. The Archimedes, designed to protect Earth from invasion, had instead become a symbol of what could be achieved when species chose to cooperate rather than conflict. But in the back of his mind, Rodriguez knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The galaxy was watching, and the choices made in the next few days would determine whether this moment of cooperation would lead to lasting change or fade into history as a curious anomaly. For now, though, he was content to watch as human and drachnid scientists worked together, proving that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't gravity or quantum fields, but the simple willingness to learn from those we once considered enemies. The news reached the Galactic Council before anyone had expected. In the vast chamber of 1,000 species, the emergency session had been called not to discuss a war or invasion, but something far more unprecedented: the complete transformation of a military confrontation into a scientific revolution. High Counselor Zexra, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate crystalline matrix, addressed the gathered representatives. In less than a week, the balance of power in our galaxy has shifted, not through force of arms, but through an entirely unexpected demonstration of scientific innovation. The chamber's holographic displays showed the Archimedes and the drachnid fleet, now arranged in a complex orbital pattern around Jupiter. The ships were being used to test new theories about space-time manipulation on a scale never before attempted. The humans, Zexra continued, have achieved what countless species thought impossible. They've turned one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy into a collaborative research fleet. In Earth orbit, the Archimedes had become the center of an impromptu scientific conference. Ships from dozens of species were arriving, not to threaten Earth, but to learn. Dr. Wong found herself conducting seminars for beings she'd never imagined meeting, explaining principles that seemed obvious to humans, but revolutionary to species far more technologically advanced. The key, she explained to a gathered group of alien scientists, was questioning our fundamental assumptions. We knew we couldn't match the Drachnid Empire's industrial capacity, so we asked different questions entirely. Captain Rodriguez, watching from the bridge, received a priority communication from Admiral Martinez. Captain, we're detecting something unusual at the edge of the solar system. Multiple quantum signatures, but they're not like anything we've seen before. The main screen shifted to show a fleet of vessels, unlike any in known space. They seemed to be made of living crystal, their surfaces refracting light in impossible ways. The ships moved with an organic grace that made even the Archimedes look primitive by comparison. The preservers, Voxthul whispered, his usual confidence shaken. They haven't been seen in 10,000 years. The crystalline ships approached, their presence causing ripples in the very fabric of space-time that the human and drachnid scientists had been studying. A communication came through on all frequencies, in a language that seemed to bypass traditional translation methods and speak directly to understanding. "We have watched and waited," the message began, observing how younger species would handle the power to reshape reality. "Always before, such knowledge led to destruction. But you have shown us something new." The preserver vessels arranged themselves in a pattern around the combined human and drachnid fleet. Energy patterns danced between them, creating displays of physics that made even Dr. Wong's advanced theories seem elementary. "Your species," the message continued, "has demonstrated that true advancement comes not from domination, but from understanding. Not from force, but from wisdom." Rodriguez shared a glance with Wong. "We just did what seemed logical," he said. "When faced with overwhelming force, we chose to understand rather than escalate." "Precisely," the preserver voice resonated. "And in doing so, you have proven yourselves ready for the next step in cosmic understanding." The crystalline ships began to emit patterns of light that transformed the space around them. The combined human and drachnid scientists watched in awe as new dimensions of reality became visible to their instruments. "We are offering you something we have offered to no other species," the preservers announced. "The chance to learn what we know, not because you have conquered or dominated, but because you have shown the wisdom to use knowledge for understanding rather than power." Admiral Martinez's voice came through, tight with emotion. "The Galactic Council is going crazy. Species that have been at war for centuries are calling for immediate ceasefires. Everyone wants to be part of what's happening here." Voxful, standing among the human scientists he had come to respect, made a decision that would change his empire forever. "The Drachnid Empire formally requests to be part of this exchange of knowledge, not as conquerors or the conquered, but as equals seeking understanding." The preserver's response was felt rather than heard, a wave of approval that resonated through all present. The crystalline ships began sharing their knowledge, not just with humans, but with all species present who showed the willingness to learn and understand. Dr. Wong found herself working alongside beings of pure energy and living crystal, each bringing their own unique perspective to the understanding of the universe. The Archimedes, originally designed as humanity's last defense, had become the catalyst for the greatest peaceful revolution the galaxy had ever seen. "You know," Rodriguez said to Wong as they watched the combined fleets working together, "when we launched this mission, I thought success meant saving Earth. I never imagined we'd end up saving the galaxy from itself." Wong smiled, her hands dancing over equations that would have seemed like magic just days ago. "That's the thing about scientific discovery, Captain. The most important breakthroughs often come not from finding the answer you were looking for, but from being open to the answers you never expected." The preserver's presence had transformed what began as a potential invasion into something unprecedented in galactic history. A genuine confluence of species and civilizations, all working together to understand the deeper mysteries of the universe. And at the center of it all, the Archimedes continued its vigilant orbit, a testament to humanity's unique approach to problem-solving, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from overwhelming force, but from the simple willingness to think differently. 1 month after the arrival of the preservers, Earth's solar system had become unrecognizable. The space around Jupiter glittered with the combined fleets of 100 species, all engaged in what historians would later call the Great Awakening. The Archimedes, now dwarfed by the massive research platforms that had sprung up around it, still held a position of honor at the center of the gathering. Dr. Emily Wong stood at its observation deck, watching as crystalline preserver ships danced through space alongside reformed drachnid dreadnoughts and vessels of designs she still struggled to comprehend. "Strange to think," Captain Rodriguez said, joining her at the window, "that all of this started because we couldn't build a proper fleet." Wong laughed. "Sometimes the best innovations come from working within limitations. We couldn't match their numbers, so we had to understand the physics better." The ship's quantum sensors registered another ripple in spacetime as a preserver vessel demonstrated a new principle of reality manipulation. The combined scientific teams, human, drachnid, and dozens of other species, gathered data eagerly, each bringing their own perspective to understanding the phenomenon. Message from Admiral Martinez. The comm officer announced. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. Rodriguez straightened his uniform, put it through. The main screen filled with the image of High Counselors Extra, their energy form pulsing with what had come to be recognized as excitement. People of Earth, what began as a potential tragedy has become the greatest advancement in galactic history. The Council has voted to establish Earth's solar system as the first galactic center of scientific understanding. Commander Voxfull, who had chosen to remain with the research fleet rather than return to the Empire, clicked his mandibles in approval. My people have already begun dismantling our invasion fleets. We're converting the resources into research vessels and educational facilities. The concepts you've shown us, Krellings added, her crystalline sensors glowing, about approaching problems from new angles, about questioning fundamental assumptions. They're revolutionizing not just our science, but our entire civilization. The Preserver's message resonated through the gathering. For too long, species have measured advancement by their capacity for destruction. Humanity reminded us that true progress lies in understanding, not domination. Admiral Martinez's image joined the discussion. We've received reports from across the galaxy. Species that have been at war for generations are establishing joint research initiatives. The hunger for knowledge is proving stronger than the desire for conquest. Dr. Wong turned to her latest project, a holographic display showing the combined work of 20 different species. We're seeing advances that would have taken centuries to achieve independently. Every species brings their own insights, their own way of looking at the universe. And that, Rodriguez observed, might be humanity's greatest contribution. Not the gravitational technology, not the Archimedes itself, but the simple idea that cooperation yields better results than conflict. The ship's sensors registered another arrival, a vessel of living thought from the galactic core, come to share its people's understanding of quantum consciousness. Around it, drachnid warships that once would have attacked now moved aside respectfully, their crews more interested in learning than conquering. The Preservers were right, Wong mused, watching the interaction. We weren't ready for their knowledge until we proved we could use it wisely. Not just humans, but all species. The Archimedes' quantum core hummed softly, its systems now integrated with technology from a dozen worlds, each addition making it not more powerful, but more insightful. It had evolved from a defensive weapon into a symbol of unity and progress. There's something poetic about it, Martinez said. We built this ship to save humanity, but in doing so, we ended up helping save everyone. The Preserver's final message that day echoed through all ships present. The universe is vast, and its mysteries endless. But today marks the beginning of a new era, one where all species work together to understand rather than control. The humans reminded us that the greatest power lies not in consuming knowledge, but in sharing it. As the Earth rotated below them, its night side now glittering with the lights of 1,000 alien vessels come to learn and share, humanity found itself at the center of a revolution no one had expected. They had faced extinction and instead catalyzed an unprecedented age of discovery and cooperation. The Archimedes, humanity's lone ship, had done more than defend Earth. It had shown the galaxy a new way forward, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is simply the courage to think differently. And in the vast chamber of the Galactic Council, a new inscription was added to the ancient walls. From the species that turned an invasion into an invitation, we learned that the greatest victories come not from overwhelming force, but from overwhelming understanding. The age of warfare was ending. The age of discovery had begun, and humanity, the species that had dared to face an armada with a single ship, found itself not just surviving, but helping to guide the galaxy toward a future brighter than anyone had imagined possible.